Okay, John Wertz here, Montgomery County Tea Party. We're here today with Mr. Luis Granado, and he's running for Township Position 7. And with me today are Billy Graff, Dennis Tibbs, Pat Tibbs, Tom Bagley, and John Boucher. And DJ Fike will be here shortly. Thanks for coming in, Mr. Granado. Appreciate you running for office in this position. So as we discussed a little bit earlier, the way we'll always get started with our meetings is allow the candidate to start off with up to 5 minutes in an opening speech, and then we'll go around the table with questions. And Ms. Pat is going to be down here timing. And what do you have, Pat? 3 minutes?
I think 3 minutes is what we did before, and
Okay.
5 minutes for opening and closing.
Okay, 5 minutes for opening, closing, and 3 minutes for your answers to our questions. So if you want to go ahead and get started.
Yeah, sure. Well, my name is Luis Granados. As you can notice, I got an accent, so if I say something that you didn't catch, let me know, I can repeat it, no problem, okay? I was born in Peru, and I came here in 1984 to pursue a PhD in nuclear engineering. To my bad luck, in 1986 or 7, there was a Chernobyl accident, and my plans were to be toilet. So I had to accommodate myself to the new circumstances. In 2005, I moved here to the Woodlands. I love this area. It was a rural area, it was smaller, the traffic was acceptable, the people was very, very nice. I love the place, so I moved here. For the last 16 years, I've been living in the Woodlands, have a lot of friends here, and despite that, I had to work to Houston. Okay, I had to travel 1 hour each way every day. So, but it doesn't matter. It didn't matter to me because it was worth it. In the last 8 to 10 years, something started changing in the Woodlands, and the traffic, deforestation, widening of the roads, even the people that I used to meet, and they disappeared, they went somewhere else. Even the people are changing. The kind of people, the professional people that I used to enjoy. So I started digging into what's going on here, what's happening. So I did my research, I did my homework before applying for this position, okay? So I started talking to the commissioners, Commissioner Riley, Commissioner Nowak, even Commissioner Gable in Harris County. And why did I do that? It's because I noticed that there are some communication here between the commissioners in Montgomery County and the commissioners in Harris County. They want to connect these two areas. Even when Harris County or Houston cannot annex the wetlands by law or by regulation, physically, or as they say in Latin, de facto, they are doing this annexation, widening the roads, like is happening right now, taking the road. You can go over there and you can see the mess that they are doing. And I will go over there, over that problem later. But this is what I noticed, and I arrived to a conclusion. And why that? First, I need to tell you something. What is my expertise as an engineer? Is forensic engineering. I do what I call root cause failure analysis. So I decided to apply the same techniques that the customer pay me or my employer into what I saw was a problem here in the Woodlands. Of course for free, right? Just for my own interest. And I arrived to some conclusions. The commissioners, they don't have the best interest in the Woodlands. That's a fact. The judge, the previous judge, Doyle, and the present Gale, even when they are Republicans, they don't have the best interest of the Woodlands. So they can say that they are conservative and they are Republicans, but it doesn't mean that their acts reflect their way of living. And that's something that it concerns me, especially with these judges. Doyle, you know, that has some problems, and the new one that also has some problems. How are we electing or supporting people who have legal problems or who are driving while intoxicated? What type of judge do we have? Who elect these people? So they need to have moral character. So it's not enough to be conservative. First, they need to have the moral character. And after you verify and certify that, then you go to the conservatism. That's one point that I wanted to make you hear at front, because I know that if we are talking now the cream de la cream on conservatism, this is you, right? This is you. Now, when I apply these techniques that I was mentioning to you before, that I use it for my customer, for my employer, to the woodlands, I realized that if we don't do something to stop this thing, there is not going to be woods in the woodlands. In 15 years, this is not going to be recognized. So we need to do something. So how can we do that? Do the board of directors are incompetent? That's my question. I thought that they were incompetent, they weren't able to do anything. That's not the case. They don't have the authority to stop this situation of the construction of the multifamily buildings and the apartment buildings and all that stuff. They don't have the authority to stop them. And to stop who? The Woodlands Development Company. And who is the Woodlands Development Company? It's the huge corporation. But then I come in this conundrum, right? Because I am free market, I am conservative and all that. Now I am attacking a private company. So how am I going to show up here to a group of conservatives saying that I'm conservative, I'm for free market economy, but I realize that one corporation is damaging the place where we live. That's the conundrum that in which it was presented to me to explain it to you what my position is, right? So not all corporations act for the benefit of the people. Some of them are predators. And the huge corporation, I'm sorry to say that, they are acting like predators. Building all these apartment complex, multifamily complex over there without any zoning, without any deed of restriction. Now, how do we do that? How do we get there? The only way that we can get there is incorporate. That's the only way. I'm sorry if you can agree with me, but I'm telling you up front the results of my analysis. This is the analysis that I judge for. Okay? So usually I present a written report, right? 20 pages, not scripted. I'm not doing that right now because I did it for myself. But now I'm passing this to you. So we need to incorporate, or there is not going to be wood in the woodlands.
Well, thank you, and we'll get to all these things. You seem like you have a lot of information you want to get out, and we're going to ask a lot of questions, but your introduction was excellent. We know a little bit more about you. Thank you. Mr. Wertz? Thank you. What do you, about the fifth question down under other, you said, we asked, were you in favor of allowing residents to vote on the incorporation question once the planning process was complete? Why or why not? And you did an answer, and then you said it's the only one decision I really like from the present board of directors. What else do you disagree with them on in part? Do you have some examples that you disagree with the current board?
Besides that they don't have the authority that we were talking before to impose zoning or deed of restrictions, this is a social club. This is a social club where they have formed in which one person controls 4 votes, de facto, by friends, by connections, because they support one and the other. One person controls 4 votes. And you know who we're talking with. I don't want to mention any name, but you know what I'm talking about.
I will.
Or you do it, okay, I will. So the way that the board of directors has been working for the last 8 to 10 years has not been good to us. And I was surprised when they put this motion to allow the residents to agree or disagree, to vote to agree or disagree with the corporation. I was surprised on that, to be honest with you. I didn't expect it. That's why I put that note over there. That's the only thing that I agree with this board of directors, to be honest with you.
But what else do you disagree with on there?
Well,
With the board, you said that was the only thing you agreed with.
okay, well, when I told you before that I did my homework, I really did. I went to the committees, for example, the MATs, in the one that I'm, the MAT 47, I assume it's the others. There is a representative of the, there is a judge representative over there. Also, there is a representative for the commissioners and a representative for the board of directors. And when I try to exchange some ideas, for example, this MAT 47, and I was talking to you before, the representative for the board of directors was painted in the wall. He was subservient to what the others were saying, including the judge and including the representative for the huge corporation. The huge corporation or Woodlands Development Company had a representative there, and he was the one who was setting the pace for this conversation. So, no, they don't do
Is that
it.
the chairman of the township?
No, they appoint somebody,
Oh, okay.
not the president of the board of directors. They appoint somebody to go there to communicate with the others, the representative of the commissioner, judge, and the other people around.
Oh, yeah, on the president.
Exactly, and that's one. And the other one that I'm trying to figure out is the RUD, that they used to call Road Utility District Number 1. Now they changed the name, now it's just Road Utility District, call it RUD.
Right.
So, do you know that they are collecting taxes?
We know all about the.
You know that, right? And that those taxes are being handled somehow by the Woodlands Development Company.
It's called taxation without representation.
Something like that. So we got a private company who is collecting taxes. I mean,
Yeah.
where can you get something like that? Not even in.
No, wait, well, you circled back to something, you said, you talk about private companies and you feel like it's a conflict between your conservatism and the free market system and going after these private companies. But private companies are not just inherently good just because they're private companies. I mean, the Clinton Foundation is a great example of that. I wanted to ask you a question. There's been a lot of hubbub about annexation. You sort of touched on it a little bit in your introduction. And you talked about not being able to be annexed because of the legislation that was put forth a few years back, as well as contractually. But you understand, of course, that every courtroom across America right now has lawyers that are arguing over the merits of a contract. So contracts are not dispositive of the issue. Also, every 2 years, our legislature meets to discuss laws, and laws change. I can give you some examples if you like. So given that information, how confident are you against annexation? You mentioned we're already having a de facto annexation. How confident are you that this annexation cannot happen over the next 50 years as the Woodlands people are being told?
I'm not confident at all. And that's the reason why I arrived at the conclusion that the only way to stop this is incorporating and making the Woodlands a city with his own mayor and his own representatives of the different village. And that's what I arrived at the conclusion. That if I had to make a summary or a written report of the analysis that I made for myself, the recommendation would be to incorporate. And not only that, but also pay to the officers, pay to the mayor, pay to the city councilman. You need to pay the people. You get what you pay for.
Sure.
You cannot request from somebody to go to work after working hours for free. You cannot expect from them results. How are you going to ask them if you are not paying? So I really believe that they should be salary.
I would agree with that to some degree, but they're not asking for that right now. And we've reached an interesting point in this debate where our commissioners, who are in the 11th largest county in the state, and I believe with their 5% raise are probably in the top 2 or 3 and the highest paid commissioners in the state, are accusing this volunteer board of being greedy.
Is that right?
Yes, they are. So it's an interesting dynamic. I would really like to see a root cause failure analysis on the commissioner's report here in Montgomery County. If you ever wanted to write that up, that would be a lot of fun.
I could do that. As a matter of fact, this is an anecdotal situation that happened with Commissioner Riley. So we were,
Okay. actually.
Oh, you don't want me to go there?
Well, we just don't use profanity either.
Oh.
I
wasn't going to say that.
How is it impacts the township?
No, it was not bad. I mean, it was an anecdotal situation that I spoke to him 2-3 times, and he said that progress doesn't need to be good. He said that, okay, I'm repeating literally, and I reply saying, well, then I don't want your progress. I don't want your progress. If it's not for good, I don't want it.
Thank you, Bill. Bob. Favor.
There's a lot of talk about law enforcement change if the Woodlands becomes a city. The county is responsible for law enforcement for every part of this county, whether it's the sheriff's office, and in most states, that's all they have, unless they have city cops. Most states don't have constables. But now we have two entities that our tax dollars are going towards for law enforcement for unincorporated areas like the Woodlands. That's supposed to be paying for law enforcement. However, Woodlands has to put out how many $1 million for law enforcement right now that they're paying for law enforcement above and beyond what they're already supposed to be getting? And it's like, is that fair to the taxpayers of the Woodlands to be paying triple for law enforcement?
Are you talking about before the incorporation or after the incorporation?
Well, as of right now,
As it is right now.
as it is right now, they're paying for the county, for the sheriff's office to patrol their area, and they're paying for the constable's offices to be patrolling their areas. And neither of them are doing it adequately, so the township is paying for another set of law enforcement officers through the sheriff's department, but still another set of law enforcement to be taking care of them as unincorporated. It's not going to change when they become a city. They'll still have their police force, but they're already paying right now for the county to do it, and the county's not doing it, so they're having to pay extra.
Well, but it could change, because they will have the authority, the city council members and the mayor, they will have the authority to review all this stuff. And if you went to the last meeting with the Novak group you want to make this analysis,
Right.
they mentioned 2 or 3 alternatives, and one of these is the hybrid form, in which you hire, initially, the first 1 or 2 years, you continue doing what you were doing, so not create waves, right?
Right.
But the year 3, 4, 5, there are some changes. And gradually, you starting making some contractual agreements, contacting with the people who are providing right now the service. And something else that I was thinking, when I was listening to these people about the hybrid model, overseas, talking about Europe, Latin America, they have a service that they call it in Spanish, serenazgo. I was trying to find out the word in English, they call it serenity, or it's like a peace officer, something below a police officer, but still deputized, right? So it's not a full broad police officer, but still have the authority to go around the villages and verify that everything is okay, and then report them to the police officer.
Code enforcement?
Like that, so.
Don't they have that already, the Omega horse services that ride around on these horses?
Do they know?
No, they don't. No, it's not. Yeah, well, some, anyway. Yeah.
That's something that came to my mind when I was listening to this Novak report. So now, after the year, 3rd, 4th, and 5th year is when all these discussions about changes to the contractual agreements that will happen, right? The first 2 years, it's better just to keep it as it is, not to create many waves. That's my position.
Do you know how much the Woodlands is paying for the contracted services that the county should be picking up?
Just,
You know,
just for the police,
Yeah, how much are they?
I wrote it here somewhere. If I can remember, it was 4 million or something like that.
Okay.
I think it's 12 million.
About 4 million.
So.
Okay. So most of the people that pay Woodlands taxes also pay some sort of mud taxes. Some of those districts have huge debt, some of those have small debt. So under the current plans, would the city absorb those muds? And if so, how would they do that? And would the city have to offset those hundreds of people working at the muds with other city employees?
Well, there was a meeting in which somebody was talking about connect the different months. They were talking about, I can't remember the month number 3 and the number 6. They show us a map, but in between there was another map. And somebody asked, okay, but you try to put together to save money the number 3 and the number 6, but here we have another one. I don't remember the number. What are you going to do with that? And the person say, oh, okay, well, it's because they are in debt, so we don't want them. So that's not a technical analysis. You don't do things or don't do things because somebody is in red, right? You need to do it technically. If you want to save money, it's because you are going to save money, not just in labor, but also in infrastructure needed for the future, that you can use the market economy or scale in order to save money. So, without knowing a lot about the match, it seemed to me that there are too many. And in truth, they need to integrate and they need to work together, even if they belong to different villages. You can use the scale economy to save money in labor and materials, maintenance, or whatever is needed. But the criteria should be technical. Not just saying, oh, okay, they are in red, we don't want them, right? That's not the technical criteria. To me, as an engineer, I'm talking as an engineer, right? Because that's what I am, that doesn't make sense.
For people who have paid their debt down, that they can say, we paid our debt down and you want to saddle us with somebody else's $100 billion debt.
Mm.
If you join them, that's what you're doing.
Well,
There's got to be a scheme of some sort to make it fair.
there are some ways, there are some ways to assign the responsibility to parties, but the main reason to do that should be technical. And the second one is the economical, and then it's just a matter to discuss how the pie is divided, right?
Okay.
As far as running for this particular office, what are some of your goals that you're after if elected? What are some of the directions that you're hoping to go?
I really hope that it's going to be a very short assignment, month, not years, okay? Because I don't want to become an eternal board of directors member of the Woodlands. I don't want to do that. I got something else to do, to be honest with you, okay? So my interest when I applied for this position is because I noticed that there was a problem, and when there is a problem, I am there. Similar to 3 years ago when I applied for this position with the Lone Star College as a trustee, it's because there was a problem there, and it's still there. But that's another issue, okay? So I identify the problem and I go after, like one of these dog hunters. So that's what I've been trained to do, okay? I'm trained to solve problems. And on this specific position, what I expect to do is to serve as a transition agent between the township and the city of the Woodlands. And the first thing that I will recommend is a zero-based budget. Right now, the budget, you don't know how the budget is coming from. They just increased 2 to 3% from the previous year. They have been doing it for years. Okay? For what? What are the requirements and what is the money that we are willing to pay for those requirements? Are these requirements really what the residents want? Or something like somebody 15, 20 years ago decided that the Woodlands should have? It's a zero-based budget. You understand the concept, right? It will serve as a starting point for the city of the Woodlands. So they will have something real, not just a bunch of scrap or, I use the word, a bunch of misinformation coming from the old township.
Do you think they're not using zero-based budgeting?
They are not using that. They are not.
So you mentioned a term, just to follow on from what you were just answering to Billy, that you would just come in, fix a problem, and leave. The terms were 2 years. Does that mean if you came in and fix a problem within 6 months, that you would be done and moving on, or?
There will be new elections, right, to elect the mayor
2
and
years
city
down.
council, 2 years. Okay, well, in 2 more years, you don't see me. You won't see
Okay,
me
so
anymore, so,
you would-
yeah, exactly, just to solve the problem and move to something else. I don't want to be a part of the social club. I don't, I really
But you
don't.
stay for the term?
Yeah,
2-year term.
sure.
Okay.
But I really expect that this city, this is going to become a city. I really expect that. Because otherwise, the consequences are really bad. There is not going to be, in 15, 20 more years, there is not going to be woodlands. At least that what we understand it is, or what Mr. Mitchell understood this was going to be.
I don't know, so I'll take it from here, I guess new clock start. So there are 72 signs around the Woodlands that say that it may not be. And there's a lot of information out there. Do you believe those signs?
Oh, they are made by the Hughes Corporation.
Yeah.
Yeah, they are
Well, it
made.
says higher taxes, bigger government.
No, not necessarily. This hybrid thing that we were talking for the police, for example, could be also done for other things, like the fire department or whatever. You can make contractual agreements to make the cost down, okay, and you can be flexible. The first 2 years, nothing will change, same thing, yeah, as we were talking before. But the year 3, 4, 5, and ahead, so that's where we can negotiate agreements if we need it. If we are spending so much money, okay, let's go to talk to Conroe or Harris or whoever. So it's not written in the stone. It's not written in the stone. But somebody needs to have the authority to do that. And these people, they don't.
So we have a contract in place right now with cities of Houston and Conroe not to annex us. How solid is that contract? Could that be renegotiated? Perhaps.
That's what he was talking before, right?
57. Oh, they did?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
What are you?
No, I'm sorry, I was looking ahead.
No.
So, where did my train of thought? Okay, so.
Corporation.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Don't feel bad, okay?
No, I was looking to.
I can answer if you want, and if you feel better, I can answer that again.
That's okay. Oh, wait, I want to.
So did you attend the event last night at the South County Community Center?
Yeah.
Did you hear when Commissioner Nowak, when they were talking about traffic abatement, he said, John looked at me when he said this, he goes, we'll widen the roads. And that, of course, will change the characteristics of the woodlands if you're clear cutting trees and widening the roads. So my question to you is this, the debate has turned into, if I'm summarizing Commissioner Nowak's position correctly, your taxes are going up if you incorporate. Gordy Bunch, Director Bunch is saying our models say they're not. Now, you've been in this game long enough to know that people on either side will get their experts and they'll beat the numbers to confess to whatever they want to confess to for the purpose of the debate. So let's put all that aside and let me ask you a question here about that. Understanding Commissioner Nowak's plan for widening roads and clear cutting trees, because that's a death spiral. Once you clear cut the road and widen it, the traffic count increases, and then they point to the traffic count again and say, now we have to do the next thing because the traffic count increased. That's a death spiral.
It's like a catch-22.
Right.
They are expanding the roads because they say it's more traffic.
If you
But in
build
truth, there is more traffic because you are expanding the roads.
build it, they will come. That's correct.
Exactly.
So my question is this, If the people of the Woodlands were put to a vote, what do you think the tolerable tax rate they would accept to preserve the character of the Woodlands? Do you believe taxes are going to go up with incorporation, number one? That's part of the question. And if so, is that a deal killer, you think, for incorporation of the Woodlands, or should it be to the people of the Woodlands?
Okay.
Two-part question.
Let's figure out, let's say very clear, who lives in the Woodlands? They are not living here to save money on taxes. People here have an upper standard of living, an average salary of $135,000 per year. So we are not talking the third world or the fifth world people living here. Okay, I'm not trying to be dismissive or offensive to anybody, but money is important, but more important is preserve the integrity of the woodlands. And if I have to pay a few more cents over the point, how much is that, 0.231 or something like that, and I'm paying $100 on my home, I'm gladly to do that, because money is not the important factor here. Is to stop this crazy expanding that the commissioners are doing. And now that we are talking about the expanding of the roads, let's talk about Kakendall Road. Kakendall Road used to end in
Spring 1960.
1960. Now it's going to be expanded. In the area, what's the name of that? Creekside. There used to be a golf court. There was to be a golf court. Now there is a Walmart. We're talking about the same area. The name of the place, it was destroyed. It was removed. All the trees were removed in order to build an apartment complex over there and a Walmart. Now they are coming to the north, and when they reach the Bear Creek Reservoir, you familiar? The Bear Creek Reservoir. They are expanding that area. They are removing the trees. There were some protective species over there. What happened during Harvey? That reservoir is going to overflow, and the water follows the path of the least resistance. And they are going to find a new construction, the new bridge that they are doing that right now. It used to be 2 lanes, it's going to be 4 lanes. Now, who authorized this? It was Noack, Commissioner Noack, talking with Commissioner Cactus, what's his name, Gable, with Harris County. Cable. So, and when I communicated with Commissioner Noack's office and asked, who authorized this thing? And they say, the Army Corps of Engineers. Okay, well, I contact the Army Corps of Engineers. I say, hey, did you authorize this thing? And they reply. They say, it was a conditional approval. And I say, well, did you send somebody to analyze, to do an environmental study? No. Okay. Did you send somebody to analyze the hydraulics on the water on this reservoir? Because if there is another Harvey, that area is going to be flooded, and the water is going to find an obstruction downstream. You say, no. Okay, so are you going to do that? You know what they say? We are going to pass to another level, and these other people are going to contact you in the future. In the meantime,
How did that go? How did that go, that conversation?
that conversation, I'm still waiting for the next level.
I wanted to get that on the record for you.
Okay, so I came back to Noack, and I told the assistant, he never come to the phone, say, hey, this is what the Army Corps of Engineers are telling me. They make a conditional approval, subject that you do something else. Did you do these other things? No answer. Now, this is something that I wanted to pass it to you. Maybe you have, or you know somebody who may be interested in this subject. But I've been spending a lot of time talking about this expansion of the Kakendall Road. That they may have some bad consequences if there is another Harvey around. The reservoir is going to overflow, and the water has to go somewhere, and it's going to find an obstruction on a bridge building over there.
Okay.
I'm gonna pass. I can't remember where it was at. I was too involved in this one.
Well, I'm just a little curious as to why you say that the township board should not be paid, but the city council should be paid. And that can be a vastly different job.
It's the only way that you can, you have the moral authority to go them and ask them for results. Right now, they are elected officials, but they don't receive a penny. They do this like a hobby after working hours, right? In addition that they don't have the motivation, they don't have the time, they don't have the authority, they don't have anything really. So it's easy maybe to say they are a bunch of do-nothing people, but on the other side, they don't have the authority. And how do I know? Because I spoke to Mr. Batchet, he said, I don't have the authority. I don't have the authority to stop the construction of the roads. Okay, when you don't have the authority, you go and convert this to a city. Maybe the new mayor and the city council, they will have the authority. I'm sure that they will.
Well, our state is run by people who are almost non-paid. Representatives, senators make $600 a month. Okay. So,
You're done? Okay. As a board member, which could very easily turn into a city council member overnight almost, I guess, according to the way they're gonna do it. What do you see as the number one responsibility that you have as a member of a city council, assuming it did pass?
Well, the city council need to be elected, right? It's not going to be the same group of people that before. The city council, the mayor will have to be elected by the residents. At that moment, the member of the board of directors will have to say, thank you very much, and leave, right? Some of them, they may elect to continue, to put their name, to become a city council. Some of them, they may not be interested. Nobody knows that, right? But it's a new group of people, hopefully, a new faces will come to play and assume the responsibility, maybe with the incentive of making a little bit of money, right? Not like a hobby like it is right now, right?
Let me just add on, I still have a few minutes. Does a mayor of a city have more or less authority and power than a chairman of a town council?
Well, does the charter need to decide that, right? There need to be a charter for the city, and the charter is going to decide what is the authority that the mayor, or is going to be distributed within the city councils, or one sharing the authority. That's something for the charter, right?
Mm-hmm.
But at least we have a charter, and we started with the zero-based budget and a charter.
Okay.
So fresh, scratch. Okay, here you go. Start.
All right, I got one. This is kind of like bam, bam, bam. Do you think that the current township leadership is doing what it needs to do to properly partner with the county in the area of government?
They are not in the same, they are not vis-a-vis, they are not in the same level, they are not seeing eye to eye. Because these people, these group of people in the board of directors, they don't have the authority. They don't have the authority that the commissioner has. And that's the reason why the commissioners are taking advantage of the situation. And also, this disagreement, both are being taken advantage by the Woodlands Development Company, the huge corporation, which is like an edge there. Nobody appointed them for anything, but they are there. They own the place, basically. They own the woodlands. So,
With that in mind, they have about 700 acres left to develop in the woodlands. What do you see happening? It ranges between a lot of land in the township or properties and along right-of-ways like Woodlands Parkway and Research. How do you think Connor Hughes is going to leave all that as a green belt, or do you think that's going to be developed, and what's it going to look like
Well,
several years down the road?
that's where the zoning and the deed of the restrictions comes, right? And that's the reason why they don't like it. They don't like the idea to become corporate.
Don't like what?
They don't like the township to become a city. Because they know that the new charter may give more authority to the mayor and the city council to put zoning, these restrictions. They don't like it. They prey on this situation. They prey, they are predators, really. So,
What do you see this becoming? What are they gonna do with that property? What are they gonna do with the property in the township, and what are they gonna do with the right of way along Woodlands Park Road and Research?
well, I read in the newspaper that they decided not to pursue the Alden Bridge, the Woodlands Parkway. You read that? There was something in the newspaper yesterday, the day before yesterday.
Just in time for the election?
Just in time, exactly, but not in time for the Kicking Road, because that's going to be done. That's going to be done, and that road, the Kicking Road, is connecting right now to the 288, when there is a HEB over there. That's a 2-lane street, and then become 4, when you go after
You mean 242 or 1480?
1488, connect to 1488. The idea for them is to continue, they want to connect the city of Conroe
To Waco.
Exactly. So, and we are in the middle. And one more thing, this new train that they are talking about connecting Houston to Dallas, where do you think it's going to stop? It's going to stop here, right? So we need to do something to starting giving the authorities more power to sit down in the table with the same level of authority, not like the child or the lower brother in the table, the one who doesn't say anything and is subservient to the others. So we need to do it right now.
Do you think that train is a good idea between Houston and Dallas?
Well, it depends, right? What are the conditions? Where are they going to stop? What's happening in that train station? Is it going to be another buses collecting people there to move it from the train to the villages? There is a lot of questions here that we don't know, right? But I believe that's going to happen. And we better become a city to sit down at the table with the same level of authority as the others, not with a group of subservient people that we have right now doing nothing, painted on the wall, which is what they are doing with these conditions that I was talking before, with MAD and the RUD and the others.
Well, I'm going to be psychic here and tell you that Bob's going to ask you a question about eminent domain after that answer, but I'm going to talk about MUDs here for a second. The Woodlands, water is a huge issue. I serve on the Lone Star Groundwater Conservation District. I don't know if you knew that or not. And water in the Woodlands is a major issue. I mean, you have the SJRA that owns all 38 of the wells in the Woodlands. You have a water main that's running through a fault line in the Woodlands, which creates a very dangerous and unstable situation. You have the MUDs that are in charge of some aspects, if not all aspects, of flooding. So my question is this. First of all, the Woodlands, in talking to the directors, they sort of have come to the point where they acknowledge that the water problem in the Woodlands is solvable by the people of the Woodlands. Okay? So that's a good thing that we've come to that point. My question is should they split flooding out into a separate agency, or should they leave it under the MUDs? Should they incorporate? In other words, should you start another whole agency in charge of groundwater, surface water management, and flooding and flood mitigation as a whole separate government entity within the city, or should you leave it spread out how it is? What's your opinion?
Well, we were talking before about the convenience to integrate these MADs, because there is a bunch of them, right? In a relatively small area, there is like how many? Like a 13 or something?
It's a separate issue though, because you can consolidate the MUDs. The idea though is each one of them has flood mitigation.
Mm-hmm.
Should you take that aspect of managing flooding and put it into its own organization? If I didn't state that correctly, I'll make sure I say that.
Yeah, well, that's
Just an opinion.
it's extemporaneous to say one way or the other, because the the city council need to come together and to maybe hire a group of engineers to analyze the alternatives and provide it with the recommendation, right? So, right now, I cannot tell one
Just
way or
in
the
a
other. I don't have any. So, I don't.
I'm not gonna go into what you, but it was a thought.
It was right there.
It was right there. Do you feel it's appropriate for our commissioners, our state representative, or our other elected officials, our state senator, people that are opposing the Woodlands becoming a city? Do you think it's appropriate that they're all receiving money from the developers, Hughes Corporation, and the developers like Signorelli and things? Do you find that as a conflict of interest?
Of course, there is a conflict of interest. It shouldn't happen, right? There should be, in Montgomery County, they should have an ethics department. Somebody who independently investigates these kind of issues, right? Sometimes I believe that, you remember this series on TV called Dallas, many years ago, where a bunch of groups interacted with the high life, with the high society, members of the elite. That's it. That seems to me that is in Montgomery County as it is right now. We have a judge, well, I know.
There is an ethics.
There is an ethics. What are they doing?
Well, it's underneath the control of the commissioners
What
and the
they
judge.
should be independent.
Exactly.
And you saw what happened when somebody spoke up.
Oh, yeah.
Ethics before.
It should be independent. It's like you have the quality control laboratory under the supervision of the manager of the laboratory itself. They are supposed to, what they're going to do is like to have these folks taking care of the chicken, right?
Our ethics board is symbolic.
Sorry.
Yeah, it's just symbolic. There's no belief.
Not enough of the people know that live in the Woodlands know that this is going on behind the scenes, though.
Okay, as a city, would the city have authority to use certificates of obligations? And would you go along with doing that?
What type of
Certificates of obligations, that's things when the government thinks they can't pass something on a bond, that they call it an emergency and do it on their own without the voter participation.
That's for
Montgomery County used to do it all the time.
that's for the new authorities is for to decide, right?
Would you be one of those? Would you get into authority? You'd be on the board, huh?
What, you mean city council?
Would you not go to city council?
If I go, or I put my name, what?
You know, would you run for city council?
I don't think so.
So you want to go to the Woodlands Township, but then if they do incorporate, you would not have any part in the new city?
I don't agree with these eternal candidates. I don't agree with somebody being there for 8 years. That's not right. It's a power corrupt, and eternal or immense power corrupt immensely. So there should be a limit on the time that they run, maybe maximum 2, maybe.
So if they wanted to move from the township to the city, you wouldn't challenge any other first city?
I cannot say right now yes or no, but that's not what I really want. I got some other things, more interesting things to do. So this is like a sacrifice to me, okay? I'm giving my time, whatever, and exposing the problems, the analysis that I made, the root cause analysis that I made, and this is my, I am giving this to you, right? If they want to take it, fine, I will do my duties for these 2 years. And after that, a new group of people, fresh, non-corrupt, non-part of the elites, not part of the country club or the whatever you want to call, new fresh group of people. You give them a salary, do your job. You don't do your job, you will pay the consequences.
So your really sole issue is defeating the incorporation?
Not defeating the corporation, it's in favor of the corporation.
Supporting the corporation.
Supporting the incorporation, because that's the only way that the Woodlands will survive. I didn't have any opinion when I began doing this one way or the other. So as a result of the analysis is that I arrived at the conclusion that the incorporation is the only way that it will survive.
We got about 5 minutes. Some of the signs around here say, there'll be tax increases, we already addressed that. Big government. What does that mean to you? What does that mean to them? What does that mean to them by big government when you're reducing commissioners and potentially MUDs and all that down to 5 or 6 council members in there?
Right, it doesn't make, they are desperate, really. They are desperate. They are using this, trying to appease or appeal to the conservative mode that the resident of the Woodlands have, because most are conservatives. So they know that. So they are using the words like big government, bureaucracy, and all that stuff. But the bottom line is that government doesn't need to be bad. If it's small and it's efficient and do what they are supposed to do, go for that. Money, higher taxes, again, we are not the third world, right? $135 average, that is, you're not going to go bankrupt or not going to pay on the streets, right? That's not going to happen. So if I need to pay a couple of cents more with $100 on my house, and I want to preserve as it is, or return to what it was, I will pay that. Doesn't affect me. $200 per year, is it going to kill me? No, I don't think for any of us.
But is that in the budget now? Because that's not what I've been hearing.
No, they are saying
Do
that.
you agree with the numbers that Ms. Sharp came out with in the township budget, looking into the future as part of this incorporation? Do you agree with that?
Well,
All these numbers?
are you talking about the Novak report or the Novak report? Yeah, the Novak report, the
Novak.
huge corporation, they may have a point over there, that the Novak report has underestimated certain expenses. But even if they did it, I would take it. I mean, right now, we are in a surviving mode, survive or protection of the woodlands. Whatever it takes, I will do. If I need to pay $200-300 more in taxes, that we don't know if it's going to happen, we don't know at this moment, I will. Because money is not the main issue here. It's how to protect the woodland, how to stop the deforestation of the areas, the ecosystem, the wildlife has disappeared. I used to have deer, opossum, we have foxes, there ain't none. I don't have any, I haven't seen a deer in 2 years.
So, okay. So if we have a performing arts center and skating rinks, all that, who do you think should pay for that? Because that's kind of a amenity. Should that be an investor, should that be the township?
To pay for what?
Amenities like a
Like amenities.
performing arts
So,
center.
okay, I think I put
$15
something,
million.
I think I put it there something. The woodlands could be a great tourist attraction. People coming even from other states to these amenities, thing that
You said like a Disneyland.
like something like a Disney, so people come, leave their money and leave. So that's extra income, right? Because we are not being forced to pay extra money in taxes. Taxes are coming from the people coming to visit. I'm more than glad, hey, come over, Saturday and Sunday. But on Sunday morning, leave, okay? Go back to your land or Peru or whatever, right? So,
But where would you put that? Since it's all built out, the only thing left is Howard Hughes property.
well, where do you put that? That's the point. Well, we can still talk to the Howard Hughes, we can make agreement, we can talk, right? If you have this area, why don't you put a, so close, we are close to the end, right?
Okay, can you go ahead and give us your closing then?
Yeah, okay. So again, I've been living here since 2005. I noticed that the Woodlands has changed a lot in the last 8 to 10 years. I'm running this, I don't have any personal interest. In fact, I wouldn't even be here if it was for me. I'm trying to protect my ecosystem. I'm trying to protect the wildlife. and the quality of life for all of us. That's the only reason why I'm applying for this position.
Okay, well, thank you very much for coming in.
Thank you.
Thank you. Wish you luck in your campaign.
Thanks.
Yes, sir. Thank you.